Hi everyone, let's have a bit of a look at some important points about writing. According to Fellows and Oakley, writing is the use of written language to compose a text for the purpose of communicating language. So what are some of those purposes? Writing can be to tell someone how to do something, it can be descriptive, it can be explaining the details of something, to entertain someone or to report an event. There are also smaller texts that communicate information such as captions under pictures, labels, headings, signs and messages. Like reading, writing's a complex and gradual process with a lot of knowledge, skills and strategies to learn before the children can become effective writers. It's important to note that oral language is a big precursor to writing. That is because if you can't speak it, you can't write it. And what I mean by that is that vital elements of writing, such as vocabulary, sentence structure, features of written language and how it's used, are all learnt orally first. Okay, let's turn the page. All right, there are four components of writing: context, text form, process and strategies, and conventions. Writing context refers to the purpose or the reason for writing, the audience being written for, and the topic that is being written about. Text form refers to the text structure, for example, the structure of a narrative or a procedure, and the features of language that are used within that structure. There are many processes and strategies, and these include planning before writing, reading over and improving, generating ideas, organising information, visualising to inspire detail, playing with language and proofreading, just to name a few. And then there are all the conventions: spelling, grammar, punctuation, and all the skills within those broad areas of learning. Each of these components needs to be explicitly taught for children to be able to use them effectively. As if that isn't enough, handwriting and the physical aspects of writing also come into play. Children need the necessary fine motor control and the correct pencil grip to be able to write for extended periods of time without tiring. Hand-eye coordination and wrist-hand muscle strength are also factors, along with core strength, which allows children to sit and write for longer periods of time when they're a bit older. I wanted to spend a bit of time talking about the writing process. It's easy to think that writing is just something that where you sit down and you do it, or you tell children the topic, what it's going to be, and they go away and they write. There are actually 5 stages to the writing process: preparing to write or pre-writing, writing, revising, editing, and publishing or sharing. Each is an important element or important part of quality writing. Preparing to write or pre-writing sets children up for success. Most people think of preparing to write as planning your story using a drawing or a graphic organizer or a story map. All of these things can be part of preparing to write, and because they help the children to think through who their characters might be, where the story might be set, what might happen. If you're writing a recount about an excursion, they might be thinking through information about the who, what, where, when and why of the event so that they can make sure that they include all of the pertinent information. But this level of planning isn't just what preparing is about. And it's actually not necessary to always plan on paper. Planning on paper is great when the piece of writing might be ongoing over a few days and you want the children to be able to have something to refer back to. Talking, though, is also a really great way to get the creative juices flowing. Giving children a picture and having them talk to a partner about what they can see could be preparing for writing a narrative or a descriptive piece of writing. In fact, talking's very powerful. I'll refer you back to my comment at the beginning of this video about oral language. Being able to talk through ideas helps children to develop their ideas and makes writing flow much more easily. Brainstorming words that the children might need for their writing, not sight words or high frequency words, but topic words, that they might need means that some of the brain power doesn't need to go into the spelling component of writing. Preparing for writing can even mean getting children to the right mindset for concentrating. The next stage is actually writing or drafting. This is called drafting because it's a first attempt. This should be uninterrupted time wherever possible, and it's important to encourage the children to make their own spelling attempts, or they come to rely on you to provide them with the words, and that actually impacts on risk-taking and the flow of writing. How does it impact on risk-taking? Because every time a student asks you for a word rather than attempting it themselves, and you give it to them, you're doing one of two things. One, you're either allowing the students to be lazy because it's quicker to ask you than to sound it out, or two, you're reinforcing for the student that they can't do it for themselves. And pretty quickly, you'll end up with a classroom of children who want you to do all the spelling for them. The next stage is revising, which is pretty tricky to learn when you start out, so explicit teaching is really needed. Conferencing generally happens within this stage, and teachers demonstrate how to revise work using question prompts such as, does this sentence make sense? Or is there enough detail here for somebody to know what you mean? Children can also practice reading their work out loud. When revising, some of the aims might be to add new thoughts, choose more descriptive words, enhance the characters, add more detail, or take out anything that's not necessary. After revising comes editing. This is where children identify and correct errors in spelling, grammar, punctuation, and sentence structure. When editing, the overall story remains exactly the same. It's simply about fixing mistakes that you made while writing, such as typos or grammar errors or spelling mistakes. When you're revising, you're actually changing parts of your previous work to make it stronger or to provide some further clarity for the reader. The final phase is publishing or sharing. Publishing or sharing can mean writing or typing up a good copy, but it can actually just be as simple as reading out what's been written. It isn't necessary for every piece of writing to be published or shared out loud, but sharing writing helps children to understand that they're writing for a purpose, that people are going to see what they're writing or read what they're writing, and that the effort's worth it. As you can see, writing's really quite a complex process, and a lot of support needs to be provided for the children to learn the necessary skills. Hope this has been helpful. Thanks.